One of the things that I think is coolest in BCC8 is what's called the Beat Reactor. Now I'm just going to go ahead and play this little section here. This guy I've got. You can hear that it's got a really good driving beat, and what I want to do is I want to animate some of what's going on to this driving beat. I'd like to maybe make the light here a little bit pop and jiggle and dance with the beat. So I'm going to bring in the Beat Reactor. The Beat Reactor is part of nearly, I won't say every plugin, but through a lot of the ones that are useful. And I'm going to start with a color correction on this. So I'm just going to throw the color correction on this effect. I'm going to get into effect mode. And you're going to see we could play, for example, something that would be fun to animate would be the brightness. You know, it'd be nice to drive that with the beat. I was adjusting the brightness here. You'll notice these on-screen controls. If you haven't seen these before in the Boris family, these are really nice, a little bit more easy and interactive to use. Something on this effect, and a lot of the effects, are what's called the Beat Reactor. For the Beat Reactor to work, though, unfortunately, it can't source the audio from Media Composer. What you would have to do, what I've already done, what you would have to do, is you'd have to take your audio, export it out as an external file. And if you've ever used either Boris's pan and zoom, or if you've used the Avid's pan and zoom, you understand the idea of how to link to an external file. For this piece of audio, what I would have to actually do is I would have to match frame so I knew what the exact moments of it were on the timeline, and then I would have to export it. And for that, it's best to be an AIFF 16-bit stereo file. I've already done that for this piece here. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to enable the Beat Reactor. The moment I enable the Beat Reactor, we'll see a couple things happen. First off, you'll notice that it says no, nothing's there. And I kind of think of it as a nice feature. When you get lost like this in an effect, you should be aware that the Beat Reactor, when I open this up, it has its own help file. I'm going to go ahead and open up my help file here. A lot of the Boris effects have these built-in help files that are directly linked to the plugin you're using. You'll find them at the top. Here's the help file. And in the case of the Beat Reactor, it's directly here on the Beat Reactor itself. And I'm just going to close that up a moment. We need to give it an external file, and the external file I'm going to give it is this rock beat. It's already, as I said, exported, and I'm going to say open. Now, when I go ahead and play, you're going to see a histogram playback that matches that rock beat. Let's see that. Now, this would be really cool if we could link it to what's going on. And it's not set up that way yet. And the thing you've already seen me play with was the brightness. So you'll see I've got three parameter choices here, A, B, and C. And I'm just going to take the A parameter, and I'm just going to link it right to brightness. And you can see this this window comes up. And I'm going to back this up and I'm going to hit play. Okay, now that's really cool. It's a little much. So I'm just going to back up to a moment where the histogram is really pushing the brightness of the clip. Right there is not too bad. I'm going to open up these audio apply options. You can see how its output range is set from 0 to 100. It's adding to the brightness 0 to 100 units. And I'm just going to back it down. I want it to be a little bit more subtle effect. Maybe 30, 40 units or so would be just perfect. So with this set this way, when I hit play, and it's beginning to feel a little bit better than that. I'm going to refine this a little bit further. I don't want all the sound in this window. I just want some of the basses going on here. I'm going to go ahead and just grab this control on screen and say I'd like you to only sample from here to here and from here to here. So we're now not listening to it's no longer monitoring the entire beat, just this bottom section of it. That's a bit better. We want to refine this a little bit more. Do you see the fall off? It's set to unused. It just falls off immediately. If we were to pick something like, linear, it's going to have a slower fall off. And you can see what this fall off time in seconds here is. There are other choices. We also have a sustain, which it'll sustain that value. The fall off linear will mean over time it's falling off in a linear manner versus a sustain, which it'll hold just a little bit beyond the beat. And there's even mathematics like a quadratic hard or a quadratic soft. And I'm just going to pump that down to about 0.35. So this has got a real nice feel to it, and it's based on the beat. And with this set like this, I'm going to turn off this graph because this is not the only effect I want to have dance along with the beat here. So I'll go to my Beat Reactor. And remember, all I'm doing is using a straight color corrector. All this is affecting the brightness. I'm going to open up the Beat Reactor and I'm going to say, could you please stop showing the graph? So now when we play this back, this would be ready for output. That's looking really, really gorgeous. All right. Now, I want to do just a little bit more to make this shine. And for that, I'm going to add another effect, and I'm going to add another effect to work with the beat. And you should be a little bit familiar now with what I'm going to do. If you've used Media Composer for more than a day or two, you know that to add a second effect to an existing one, you hold down what key? Yeah, that's right, the Option key on the Mac, the Alt key on a PC. I'm just going to Option drag this effect on top. One of the features that actually snuck into Media Composer a couple versions ago is that if you ever had to change the order of these, you were dragging them out to a bin, in the effect editor nowadays, you can just drag and change this order of effect. You'll see the color corrections occurring before the Gaussian blur and then after it. So it's really easy for you from a real practical way to change your effect orders now with Media Composer version 6. This actually worked in version 5. I'm going to roll this open. I'm going to do a little bit of a blur. Now, I just want a bit of a vertical blur with the beat. To do this, I'm going to go ahead and uncheck these two. And just so you can see, here's that sort of vertical blur. Now, it's blurring the whole picture. I don't think I want it to blur the whole picture. I think I'd like it to be an additive process. One of the things that I love with the BCC effects is nearly everyone, where applicable, has a apply mode. And you're familiar with these modes from Photoshop. Some of them make things darker, some of them make things lighter. The one I'm looking for here is Add Mode Screen. This is going to really brighten this up. And now suddenly, by the way, doesn't this look a lot like something I did like with lens by smearing a little Vaseline on the lens? This gives me that sort of blur without, but you can still make out really what's going on. Now, of course, the last thing we want to do is we got to hook up that same Beat Reactor. So I'm going to come down. I'm going to enable the Beat Reactor. Whoops, it says I don't have the file. As I said, I think you should be able to guess some of this is what's going to go on here. I need to go ahead and give it the Beat Reactor. I need to give it the audio. And we ran into this before because, as I said, I'm working on a beta of Media Composer. Let me remove this effect. Let's put a fresh one on. My Beat Reactor controls didn't come up. There we go. I was unlocking the blur, and then I came down and I said, Beat Reactor, let's enable it. That's what I'm looking for, external file. I'll pick that same rock beat. Just for it to be a little bit different for the blur, though, let's pick a different section. I like maybe part of the hi-hats. This is my basses. These are my higher audio spectrum. I'm going to pick somewhere in the yellow here. I'd like to have the A value. I'd like it to, instead of being unused, I'd like it to be for the vertical blur. Whoops, I need to also tell my blur to be a screen. There we go. I'm going to back off its amount. Well, I'm happy with its amount. It looks really nice and blurry. It's got a real nice look to it, although I could apply how much its max is. Notice on the right side you can see how much the Beat Reactor is being affected, that sort of bar graph. I'm going to go ahead here and I'm going to say I'm pretty happy with all that. I'm going to make sure it reacts the same exact way. I want it, as I said, to, instead of working in the heavy basses, I want it to work a little bit higher in the range, so we'll put it here. I'd like it to fall off the same way I had the other one do, quadratic soft, with the same sort of fall off time. I think I pulled it back just a little bit. And so now when I play this back, whether I'm in effect mode or not, we'll stay in effect mode for this. When I go ahead and I play back this Beat Reactor, let's turn off the histogram. Where's my histogram there? That'd be Beat Reactor. Let's open this up. I'd like you to stop showing the graph. When I hit play, now the little bit of stuttering there is because of just how much real-time capability my laptop has. Let me just place it in the middle. Let's try a little bit more. But you get the idea. This is this huge, beautiful thing going on with the Beat Reactor, is suddenly I can see myself really overdoing it and animating nearly everything based on sound. And I just want to again remind you that what you'd have to do is you'd have to match frame this back and do an export of the audio for the Beat Reactor. We're not limited to doing this to video. I love doing this to logos and mats. I've taken the Boris logo and I've imported it as a mat key, a standard Avid mat key. And this becomes another little sidebar about some of the Boris effects that I think is really valuable. All I'm going to do is make this vibrate with the music. To make it vibrate with the music, though, it's by the way the same clip. It's a little bit later in the timeline. You can see I've got the logo up on V2. Let me zoom in just a little bit. It's got the same rock beat. You know, I've already exported it. I'm going to take a really simple item here, and I'm just going to use a DVE. It's a digital video effect. I'm just going to move this around. Remember earlier I just said with effects, if you've been using an Avid for a long time, you alt drag effects. The rule with the Boris plugins, anytime you want to do this to a title or to a mat key, do not hold down the Alt or Option key. When you drag the effect over your title or your imported mat, you're going to want it to destroy the effect. When you get into effect mode, there's a magic switch. I generally like to explain to people when I come to the Boris effects that you should assume stuff that's closed is not as important. And this is one of those times where it is important. I'm going to roll open title mat, and you'll see I can say apply this to the title mat, and boom, it rebuilds the title mat that was there. Now, just so you can see, there are a ton of presets. We'll be seeing some of the presets later, and the ones marked title already have that switch thrown for you. But with this now set, I can say let's scale this down. Let's move it down a little bit. Let's see, there's my position XY. I'll grab the vertical and we'll just pull it straight down. And I'm going to use what we did before. Let me close up the geometry for a moment. I'm going to say, all right, I'm going to enable that Beat Reactor. I'm going to pick that same external file. With that external file here, I can say I'd like you to apply parameter A to the scale. And now when I hit play, now we're not hearing the audio because this isn't a real-time effect, but you can see exactly how this is interacting. And this is what I explained earlier. When I roll open these audio apply options, I can change how much it's actually adding to the value or replacing to the value or subtracting to the value. I'm just going to back off the max of that. So now what we have is we have our logo bouncing to the beat of the music in a really powerful way. And that's the Beat Reactor. I'm real excited to use it. I think it's going to do all sorts of real cool things for us in the Media Composer world. It's part of what makes these Boris effects so great.